Hello and welcome to the Daily News Simplified, the why, what and how of newspaper reading. Today we will discuss the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 8th August 2018. So let's start. Now this news article on page number 12 is related to an earthquake that has happened in Indonesia. Now this will form a part of the preliminary examination syllabus under the topic World Geography. Also it forms a part of the mains examination syllabus in the General Studies paper 1 and it is a part of the subtopic Earthquakes. Now previously two questions have been asked based on the earthquakes and the distribution of earthquakes. So under this news article we will try to understand what are the causes of earthquakes. And we will also try to learn about the location where this earthquake has happened. And it is important for us from geography prelims point of view as well. Also we will try to understand the distribution of earthquakes and volcanoes. And we will try to understand some of the basic aspects of plate tectonic theory as well. Now regarding the news, it has been in news for past 2-3 days. And it is related to a powerful earthquake that has hit Indonesia and it has caused death of around 98 people. Now regarding the location of this earthquake or the focus of this earthquake, it is in Lombok Island in Indonesia. This can be seen in the map here and it is adjacent to the main island of Indonesia, that is Bali. So this location is important for us from prelims point of view. Now regarding the causes of earthquakes, the plate tectonic theory explains that all tectonic events take place along the boundaries of moving lithospheric plates. So simply according to the plate tectonic theory, the Earth's surface is composed of several lithospheric plates. So the Earth's surface is composed of lithospheric plates. And this lithosphere is composed of the Earth's crust and the upper mantle. Now as can be seen in this map, the Earth's surface has been divided into major plates and minor plates. And some of these major plates are the Eurasian plate, the North American plate, the Pacific plate and the Indo-Australian plate. So according to this theory or according to the plate tectonic theory, the earthquakes happen at the boundaries of these plates. And these boundaries are created because of the movement of these lithospheric plates. Now as these plates are moving, there are three types of plate boundaries that are formed. The first type of boundaries are the convergent boundaries. As can be seen in the map, these are the boundaries which are convergent boundaries. And an important example of the convergent plate boundary is the boundary created by the interaction of Eurasian plate and the Indo-Australian plate. Now this convergent boundary zone is exactly the location of the Indonesian island and it is the place where Himalayas are formed. So the convergent plate boundaries are also the locations of major fold mountains. And a recent earthquake that has happened in Indonesia is also a convergent boundary location where the Eurasian plate and the Indo-Australian plates meet. Now other examples of convergent boundaries and major fold mountains are the Nazca plate and the South American plate. And this is the location where the Andes fold mountains are present. So you should understand that at convergent plate boundaries, major fold mountains are formed. And also at the convergent boundaries, major earthquakes take place. The second type of boundaries is the divergent plate boundaries. And one of the example of divergent plate boundaries is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Now this can be seen in the map here. This is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Now at these divergent boundaries, the plates are moving away from each other. So the movement can be shown by these arrows. And it means that these are moving away from each other. So this is also called a spreading site. And these divergent boundary sites are related to the earthquakes and volcanoes both. However, no major fold mountains are formed at the divergent boundaries. So this point should be kept in mind. Further, the third type of boundary is the transform boundary. And a prominent example of transform boundary is the San Andreas Fault in United States of America. So at transform boundaries, neither the plates converge and nor they diverge. They simply slide against each other. So this sliding movement can be shown by the arrows. So these are sliding against each other. Neither they are converging nor they are diverging. And these locations are also associated with earthquakes. However, no volcanic activity and mountain building activity is associated with the transform boundaries. So these points should be kept in mind. So regarding the causes of earthquake, we have understood that the plate tectonic theory explains that all the tectonic events take place along the boundaries of moving lithospheric plates. And we know that the lithospheric plates are composed of the crust and the upper mantle. Further, the Earth's surface has been divided into some major plates and minor plates. And the boundaries of these plates are the major zones of tectonic activities. And we have learned that the convergent boundaries are where the fold mountains and earthquakes takes place. And an important example of this convergent boundary is the Indo-Australian plate and the Eurasian plate boundary. The example of divergent plate boundary is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and it is also associated with earthquakes and volcanoes. Further, we learned that there is a third type of boundary which is called the transform boundary, where the plates slide past each other, and this has been shown by these arrows. And this is also associated with earthquakes. However, it is not associated with fold mountains or the volcanoes. Now we can see the interaction of plates in this diagram, and both these diagrams have been taken from NCERT. So you should refer to NCERT also for understanding the plate tectonic theory. Now at the location of the convergent plate boundary, the oceanic plate is getting subducted under the continental plate. So this is a zone of subduction, and this is the zone of fold mountains and earthquakes. Further, the divergent boundary can be seen here in this diagram, and this location is known as the spreading site, as has been shown in this diagram. The plates are moving away from each other as shown by this arrow, and these are associated with earthquakes and volcanoes because the magma is coming out at the spreading site, and this causes major volcanoes. Further, the diagram also shows the transform boundaries. This can be seen here in the diagram, and it is where the plate boundaries slide past each other. Now another point that should be understood is that at convergent plate boundary, at some distance from the plate boundary, major volcanic activity also takes place. This can be seen in the diagram here, as this is the convergent plate boundary and the volcanic activity is taking place at a distance from it. Now these volcanic activity zones are known for volcanic islands, and these chain of volcanic islands or islands is known as archipelago, and that is why the Indonesian islands are known as the Indonesian archipelago. Another example of archipelago is the Japanese archipelago, and both these are volcanic in nature. Now, after understanding the convergent, divergent and transform boundaries, let us understand the world distribution of earthquakes and volcanoes. Now, regarding the distribution of earthquakes, we should understand that major earthquake and volcanic zones are overlapping in nature. And one such example is the Circum-Pacific Belt. Now, this surrounds the Pacific Ocean, and this can be seen in the map here, the Circum-Pacific Belt, and it is also known as the Pacific Ring of Fire. Now this is a major zone of earthquake and volcanoes because major convergent plate boundaries are found here, as was seen in the map previously. Now the second important belt of earthquakes is the Mid-Continental Belt, which represents the alpine Himalayan chains of Eurasia. Now alpine Himalayan chains are the Himalayas and the Alps of the European continent. Further, this mid-continental belt also lies in Northern Africa and East African fault zones. So this can be seen here, the Northern Africa and the East African fault zone. And this is the location where East African Rift Valley is located. The third important belt of earthquakes and volcanic activities is the Mid-Atlantic Belt, which represents the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. And about the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, we saw it in the diagram previously. So the distribution of earthquakes should be kept in mind, and it is also important for us from mains point of view as well. So the world distribution of earthquakes, volcanoes and fold mountains show that these zones are the plate boundaries according to the plate tectonic theory. Now let us see the questions that were asked in the mains examination. In the year 2014, a question was asked related to the formation of thousands of islands in Indonesian archipelago. The second question was related to the fold mountain system and the association between the global distribution of fold mountains, the earthquakes and the volcanoes. So these can be explained by the plate tectonic theory. With this, let us move on to the next article. This news article on page number 7 is related to a disease called Japanese encephalitis. And as we know, this has been in news for continuously past 2 years because of the deaths of infants in Gorakhpur in UP, that is the Eastern UP. Now this will form a part of the preliminary examination syllabus under the topic General Science. And it is important for us from prelims point of view because previously many questions have been asked based on major diseases. For example, this question that was asked in the year 2017 was related to the Zika virus disease. These two questions were asked in the year 2015 and they were related to the Ebola virus and the H1N1 virus. Further, in the year 2014, a question was asked related to the three major diseases, and it was asked that which of the above has been or have been eradicated in India. So at the end of this discussion, we will try to answer these questions as well. Now let us try to understand some of the key facts that are related to the encephalitis disease. Now let us understand why is the encephalitis in news. So the news article reads that majority of acute encephalitis syndrome or the AES patients which are admitted to the hospitals between August and October each year had scrub typhus as the main type of encephalitis. Secondly, the finding by this report is important because scrub typhus can be treated easily if it is detected at an early stage. And it has also been observed that most of the patients suffering from AES recovered when they were treated with the azithromycin medicine. So you should remember this fact that azithromycin is used to treat the AES or the acute encephalitis syndrome. Now regarding the acute encephalitis syndrome, it is most widely caused by the Japanese encephalitis virus. And the Japanese encephalitis virus is a vector-borne viral disease. Now vector-borne viral disease means the virus is carried by a vector. For example, mosquito is a vector. And we know that malaria is a vector-borne disease. So the Japanese encephalitis is a vector-borne viral disease. Further, it is caused by a group B arbovirus, which is known as the flavivirus, and is transmitted by the culicine mosquito. So this is an important fact which should be kept in mind. Now the acute encephalitis syndrome is characterized by an acute onset of fever and clinical neurological manifestations that include mental confusion, disorientation and coma. However, a unique thing that has been observed in India is that viruses have mainly been attributed to the cause of AES. However, there have been other sources also which have contributed to AES. These are the bacteria, fungus, parasites, chemicals and toxins. So the AES in India has been caused by both viruses and bacteria. Besides, fungus, parasites, chemicals and toxins have also contributed to AES. Now let us understand some key facts that are related to the scrub typhus, which is a type of acute encephalitis syndrome. So the scrub typhus is also known as the bush typhus, and it is a disease caused by bacteria. So this is a unique aspect of scrub typhus. We know that AES is caused by both viruses and bacteria. So the scrub typhus type of AES is caused by bacteria. And this bacteria is known as Orientia susugamushi. And the scrub typhus is spread to people through the bites of infected sugars which are known as larval mites. So the scrub typhus disease is spread to people by mites. The most common symptoms of scrub typhus include fever, headache, body aches and sometimes rashes. Now regarding the geographical distribution of this type of disease, most of the scrub typhus occur in rural areas of Southeast Asia, Indonesia, China, Japan, India and Northern Australia. So mainly this type of disease is prevalent in tropical areas. In India, the disease is widely spread all over the country and was reported in several states which include Haryana, Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttaranchal, West Bengal, Assam, Maharashtra, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So it is widely spread all over the country. So the key facts that should be remembered is that it is caused by a bacteria with the name Orientia susugamushi and it is transferred to people through the bites of mites. Common symptoms include fever, headache and body aches, and it mainly occurs in the tropical areas in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, India and other countries. And it is widely spread all over the country. So the key facts that should be remembered are that Japanese encephalitis is a vector-borne disease and the vector in this case is culicine mosquito. However, the AES or the acute encephalitis syndrome is also caused by bacteria, funguses, parasites, chemicals and toxins besides viruses. In case of scrub typhus, which is a type of acute encephalitis syndrome, it is caused by a bacteria and not by a virus. And the name of the bacteria is important, which is known as the Orientia susugamushi. And it is spread to people through the bites of larval mites. Further, it is found in tropical areas in the world and it is widely distributed all over India. Now regarding the question that was asked in 2017, the question read, consider the following statement. The first statement reads, in the tropical regions, Zika virus disease is transmitted by the same mosquito that transmits the dengue. So this statement is correct. And the second statement is, sexual transmission of Zika virus disease is possible. So this is also correct. So in this case, the correct answer is C, both 1 and 2. Further, in the year 2015, the question was asked, among the following, which were frequently mentioned in news for the outbreak of Ebola virus? So the correct answer in this case was the Guinea, Sierra Leone and Liberia. Another question that was asked in 2015 read, H1N1 virus is sometimes mentioned in the news with reference to which one of the following diseases? So the correct answer in this case was D, swine flu. Now another question that was asked in 2015 read, Consider the following diseases: diphtheria, chickenpox, and smallpox. So the question asked, which of the above diseases has or have been eradicated in India? Now you should know that diphtheria and chickenpox vaccination are provided under the Indradhanush, which is a vaccination program of Government of India. So this means that these diseases have not been eradicated. So the correct answer in this case is smallpox. And the option B, that is 3 only, is correct. Now after learning some of the key facts that are related to scrub typhus, you should try and answer this question from prelims point of view and put your answer in the comment section. With this, let us move on to the next article. This news article on page number 7 is related to a report which says that most of the babies in India are not breastfed in their first hour. So this topic falls under the General Studies paper 2 of the mains examination syllabus under the subtopic health. So let us try to understand some of the key facts that have been highlighted by the report. Now about this report, this is the 5th report of assessment of India's policy and programs on breastfeeding and infant and young child feeding in 2018. The report has given India a score of 45 out of 100 on 10 parameters under the category of policy and programs. Further, this report has been prepared by a national consortium of public health groups and agencies including the government departments, AIMS, UNICEF, and this falls under the aegis of World Breastfeeding Trends Initiative, that is WTI. The report highlights that 6 out of 10 babies born in India are not able to begin breastfeeding within the first hour of their birth. The report says that this is happening despite an improvement in the institutional deliveries across the country. Now regarding the institutional deliveries, these deliveries are conducted in the hospitals. Now the reason for the lack of breastfeeding within first hour has been attributed to the lack of supportive work environment, inadequate skills of healthcare providers, and the cesarean type of deliveries. And there are global standards for breastfeeding. In this, the WHO or the World Health Organization and UNICEF recommend that exclusive breastfeeding for infants up to the age of 6 months, and thereafter complementary foods with continued breastfeeding up to 2 years of age or beyond. So the WHO and UNICEF recommend that breastfeeding for infants should be compulsorily up to 6 months. And in this period, no other food should be given to the infants. However, after the completion of first 6 months, the child can be provided with complementary foods along with the breastfeeding up to the age of 2 years or beyond. Now let us understand some of the benefits of breastfeeding. So the first benefit is that mother's breast milk within 1 hour of birth ensures that infant receives colostrum or the first milk. So the first milk is known as colostrum. This can be an important point from prelims point of view as well. Secondly, the breastfeeding stimulates the production of colostrum. And this colostrum is also called as the baby's first vaccine because it is extremely rich in nutrients and antibodies. Now, besides being rich in nutrients and antibodies, this prevents hunger and malnutrition among the babies. It also ensures nutrition and food security for babies. So the main benefit of breastfeeding will be that it will help in reducing the infant mortality rate. This is because the initial breastfeeding with colostrum helps the children in getting important nutrients and antibodies, which helps the child in fighting against certain diseases. Further, the breastfeeding has an economic benefit as well. It says that with no additional burden on household income, it is a low-cost way of feeding the babies. So the families don't have to spend extra for feeding the newly born babies. And this practice will be beneficial for the poor people as well. And another important benefit of breastfeeding is that it will also help us in achieving some of the sustainable development goals. These include poverty reduction, zero hunger, and good health and well-being. So these are some of the benefits of breastfeeding. Now some of these points can be used in the mains answer writing. For example, if a question is asked related to improvement in the nutritional level of children and the suggestions for reducing the infant mortality rate in India, you can use all these points. Now let us have a look at the progress made by India. India has made some progress over the years between the National Family Health Survey 3 and 4. That is the NFHS 3 and NFHS 4. So according to these surveys, the early initiation of breastfeeding has improved from 23.4% in NFHS 3 to 41.5% in NFHS 4. However, this practice of breastfeeding has not kept pace with the rate of institutional deliveries. This means that despite an increase in the institutional deliveries, the breastfeeding practice is not increasing. And due to this, there has been an adverse impact on the infant mortality rate. Now, some of the points mentioned in this article can be used in answering questions like this. So you should try and attempt this question from mains point of view. With this, let us move on to the next article. The news article on page number 7 reads, the foreigners can visit 29 inhabited islands without the restricted access permit. So this topic will form a part of the preliminary examination syllabus under the topic Indian Geography. This is because the tribes of Andaman and Nicobar Islands are important for us from prelims point of view. Further, this will also form a part of the General Studies paper 2 under the topic Social Justice. Because previously in the year 2012, a question was asked related to the issue of tourism in core areas of Tiger Reserve. So the question asked, critically examine various aspects of this issue, keeping in view the relevant recent judicial pronouncements. So allowing of tourists in the restricted areas for tribes is also related to the social justice issue. Further, it can also form a part of the economy because it is a step for improving the tourism in such areas. Further, in 2014, a question was asked in the preliminary examination which was related to the Changpa community of India. So we will try to understand this issue, and at the end of the discussion, we will try to answer this question as well. The news article says that the Union Home Ministry has lifted the restrictions for foreigners on visiting 29 inhabited islands of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Now, what is the restriction? The Foreigners Order 1963 disallows a foreigner to enter and stay in a restricted area without a prior permit or permission from the Government of India. So for the foreigners to enter and stay a restricted area, they have to get a prior permit or permission from the Government of India. Now, which all areas are covered by this order? So this order covers the Andaman-Nicobar Islands, the entire Union Territory, and some parts of the Sikkim state. So both these areas are considered as restricted areas according to the Foreigners Order 1963. Now, why is the access to such areas restricted? Now, the access to these areas is restricted because certain areas are considered very delicate with respect to culture and environment they host. So the intention behind limiting the access of outsiders to these areas is to protect and preserve the distinct indigenous culture and traditions of the people inhabiting these areas. Such restriction is also aimed to maintain the ecological balance and environmental stability. Now, the names of the tribes which inhabit the islands of Andaman and Nicobar are important for us from prelims point of view. So you should know the names of these 6 aboriginal or primitive indigenous tribes of India. These are the Onges, the Jarawas, the Santilinese, the Andamanis, Shompen and the Nicobaris. So these are the 6 tribes which inhabit the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Now these tribes are protected under the Andaman and Nicobar Islands Protection of Aboriginal Tribes Regulation 1956. And these are the most economically and socially backward tribes of the country. Further, they enjoy a distinct culture and way of life, and therefore they prefer to remain isolated from the mainstream population to preserve its culture. Further, any intrusion from the outsiders is considered as a threat by them, and this is the reason why heavy restrictions are placed on the entire Union Territory of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So the reasons for imposing restrictions on access to the foreigners or the tourists in the restricted areas are important for us. Now let us understand why has the relaxation been provided. So the main reason is that in order to promote tourism of the area, the government from time to time can relax the restriction on certain areas. So accordingly, the 29 inhabited islands have now been excluded from the RAP or the restricted area permit till 2022. This means that now foreigners can access these islands without the permit. However, there are certain conditions that need to be followed. Now, regarding the question that was asked in 2014 in the preliminary examination, the question read, with reference to the Changpa community of India, consider the following statements. The first statement reads, they live mainly in the state of Uttarakhand. Now, this statement is incorrect because they live mainly in the Jammu and Kashmir. Further, the second statement reads that they rear the Pashmina goats that yield a fine wool. This statement is correct. And the third statement is that they are kept in the category of scheduled tribes. This statement is also correct. So the correct answer in this case is B, 2 and 3. And this is the reason why the names of the tribes of Andaman are important for us from prelims point of view. Now, after understanding this issue, you should try and attempt this question from mains point of view. With this, let us move on to the next article. This news article on page number 11 is related to a CAG report on the railways. Now, this will form a part of the General Studies paper 3 of the mains examination syllabus under the topic Infrastructure and the subtopic Railways. Previously in the year 2014, a question was asked related to the railways in the paper 2 of the mains examination. Now, this was because a rail tariff authority was being formed in that year. So let us try to understand some of the key aspects of this report. The CAG report on railways has highlighted that the Indian Railways has so far focused on improving the passenger amenities only, and it has not given due emphasis on removing the bottlenecks to ensure the timely movement of trains. So the CAG says that the Indian Railways has not given emphasis on the delayed trains. Now, why was this audit conducted? The audit was conducted with the aim of assessing whether the available infrastructure is adequate for handling the present and expected traffic load. So, the audit was conducted to assess the infrastructural capability of the Indian Railways in handling the present traffic load and the expected traffic load. Now, what are the highlights of the CAG report? The report says that Indian Railways has failed to invest in the augmentation of station capacity, and this has led to the delays in train service. The report further highlights that trains have to wait at the outer signals or the adjacent stations until the platform is vacated by the earlier train, and this is largely because of the non-availability of platforms and other infrastructural issues. Now let us understand what are the reasons for the delays of these trains and also the issues with the infrastructure at the stations. So the major problems that have been identified are: first, activities such as providing the platforms with adequate length for easy boarding and deboarding of passengers, adequate yard capacity, and washing pit lines significantly contribute to the timely arrival and departure of trains. So, for timely arrival and departure of trains, the platforms require an adequate length for easy deboarding and boarding of passengers, adequate yard capacity, and washing pit lines. However, the report highlights that these activities are not part of any of the station development plans. So, this is one of the important issues because of which the trains are getting delayed. Further, the report says that the station development plans mainly address facilities for the passengers and not on removing the constraints and bottlenecks for ensuring timely arrival and departure of trains. And the report highlights that timely arrival and departure of trains should be one of the most important parameter of the quality of service being provided to the passengers, and not just the facilities at the station premises. So these two aspects should be included in the quality of service that is being provided to the passengers. So the way forward is that the station development plans must give due emphasis to expand the capacity by increasing the platform length, yard capacity, and washing pit lines so that timely arrival and departure of trains can be managed. Further, dedicated freight corridors have to be completed at the earliest so as to provide seamless connectivity. So these are the two suggestions that can be provided. With this, we have come to the end of today's discussion. Now let us move on to the question for the day.